gosh, okay.
No, but going.
You guys ready?
That's good.
We're going for a couple of weeks.
You ready?
Beauty.
You guys ready?
Girl, she's
Yeah. All right, good evening. Welcome to this board meeting of the Western Springs Village Board of Trustees. To honor our nation's heroes and especially to honor the men and women in uniform who serve and protect our community, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Timmick, please call the roll.
Vice President Gallagher. Trustee Chen.
here.
Trustee Fink.
Here.
Trustee John.
Here.
Trustee Lewis.
Here.
Trustee Rudolph is absent. Trustee Terrell.
Here.
Thank you. Having read the agenda, does any trustee have an addition or deletion to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to a very happy occasion for us. Chief Gilhooly, I'm sorry you couldn't find anyone to come and support you. But we are honored and privileged to swear in our new Director of Law Enforcement Services, Police Chief Sean Gilhooly. So, Elaine or Ed, would you please do the honors?
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Sean Gilhooly,
Having been appointed to the office of
having been appointed to the office of
Director of Law Enforcement Services
Director of Law Enforcement Services
in the Village of Western Springs,
in the Village of Western Springs,
in the County of Cook,
County of Cook,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I'll support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the municipal code of the Village of Western Springs,
and the municipal code of the Village of Western Springs,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of
of the office of
Director of Law Enforcement Services
Director of Law Enforcement Services
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Chief, welcome. Chief Gilhooly, on behalf of the board, it's an honor and a privilege to welcome you to Western Springs, given your education, your experience, and obviously your demeanor. We are so thrilled to welcome you, and the entire board is looking forward to working with you. You'll be working most closely with Trustee Lewis, who is chair of the Public Health and Safety Committee, as well as the member of that committee, Trustee Terrell. But of course, we all work together and in concert, and we're looking forward to welcoming you in true fashion and working with you in the future. So I'd also like to thank everyone for coming tonight. It's so nice to see this room this full. It typically is not. And so happy to see you all, and especially want to give a warm welcome to the elected and appointed officials who came here to see this auspicious event. So thank you. Yeah. And yes.
Yes, and I just wanted to thank the board, President Gallagher, and Manager Bear for giving me this opportunity. I look forward to working with all of you. Look forward to working with men and women of the Western Springs Police Department, along with the whole village for that matter. I want to thank my wife, my daughter Gabrielle, Isabella, and Madeline for their support. Always being there. I know it's not easy being married to a police officer or being a bit of a cop. So I thank them and all my friends and family. Thank you very much for everything. Appreciate it. You're okay.
You're so well coordinated. Thank you.
Yeah, I thank you very much, everyone, for attending. You're welcome to stay, but I think you probably have better things to do. So, again, welcome, Chief. Looking forward to working with you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. I want to welcome this next group of residents in and of the public because, as you probably saw, we had standing room only for the swearing in of our new police chief, Sean Gahuli. So thank you for your patience and welcome. Moving on.
Okay, great.
I meant to do that.
Well, thank you very much for having us here tonight. We're happy to give you an update on the capital infrastructure plan. We gave a presentation to the infrastructure committee a few weeks ago, so we'll be happy to share what we've been working on and give some opportunity for questions and feedback as we move forward with this important project. So first, I just wanted to give a little bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about tonight. And first, just to share what work we've completed to date. Then we're going to talk about how we're starting to dive into the risk assessment of the infrastructure. I'm going to touch on the public survey, and I'm excited to see so many people from the public here tonight, so we can do a little prompt for the survey. And then sharing where we're at for next steps for moving forward. So as I hope many of you have seen at least once, if not several times, is the public education video that we put together working with the village staff and President Gallagher to really share what this project is all about. And it was really an important principle of this project as we started to educate and engage the public throughout this entire process. So the video was our first opportunity to share what this project's about, how the village is taking a look at its infrastructure for a long-term plan, and do some education on the different elements of the infrastructure that we're looking into here as we move forward. The other item that we put together that is out and has received a lot of great input so far is a public education survey. So I am going to be holding off on that for a little bit and then sharing some information near the end of the presentation here to show some of the results that we've received so far from the public education survey. And I want to share a little bit how we're going to use that as well. So moving through, just as a reminder, there's kind of two main components of infrastructure that we're taking a look at with this evaluation. The first is what we're calling horizontal infrastructure. So this is often the infrastructure that's never seen unless there's an issue or a problem, unfortunately. So this is the infrastructure such as your water main, your sewer, whether that's sanitary or storm or combined. All three of those we're taking a look at. The lighting infrastructure throughout the community, the fiber optic infrastructure, as well as roads and sidewalk. So as we're taking a look at this, I want to take a little bit of a step back, and I know we talked about this in the very beginning of this project, of how we're approaching this project. So we're approaching this project using an asset management type of approach. So in an asset management approach, we look at what the likelihood of something failing and the consequence of something failing. So those two criteria are used to evaluate the state of your current infrastructure. So if you look on the graph here, you can see if something's got a high consequence of failure and a high likelihood of failure, you're in that red zone in that far right-hand corner. And that really means you have to do some probably expensive repair or replacement. If you're in the medium, 5 or less, that's something you can start planning for. So by taking this approach, we're able to hopefully get some of the infrastructure more in that planning phase, so we're able to use village funds a little bit more effectively. So one of the main components that we've been working on behind the scenes is working with village staff and your GIS, or Geographical Information System. And this has been a very important phase for our evaluation as we are, oh, you okay?
Okay.
Okay. As we are using the GIS to be able to use for the evaluation for the likelihood and consequence of failure. So we've been working with staff on updating your water main infrastructure, sewer, roads, lighting, all of that. We've been working behind the scenes to get the GIS tweaked and updated for our analysis. So let me just, too many things in my hands here. Hold on a second. All right, so I just want to give a little bit of some background now as we're going through this. It's important for us to understand what your existing conditions are as much as possible before doing this analysis for risk. And so we do some trend analysis, and we love graphs and tables. So I'm going to keep them to a minimum for you tonight because we could get pretty excited about these. But it is really important for us to establish how long your infrastructure has been working for the village. And this first graph here really shows that almost half of your village was put in the 1920s. So you can see a lot of infrastructure is reaching 100 years of age. It's been working hard for the village for a long time. You can also see there's some peaks again in the 50s and 60s of where development probably picked up again. And again, that infrastructure is another major portion of the infrastructure that we're looking to renew and replace moving forward. One thing that's important to note, we often find in the Chicagoland area in particular that water main that was put in the late 50s and early 60s actually has less of a lifespan than water main that was put in before that. As that was such a big boom of construction, we find that construction methodology just wasn't up to today's standards, so that infrastructure just doesn't last quite as long. Another element we take a look at is what kind of failure you're already seeing. So working with village staff, we were able to get data on main breaks that have occurred throughout the community. And you can see again, maybe no surprise, but the majority of the main breaks have occurred on the mains from the 1920s, 100 years old again, it's lasted a long time. But again, like that more fragile main I was talking about from the 50s and 60s, you can see quite a bit of those main breaks are occurring in those mains that were installed in those decades as well. One thing that's important to note is just we are looking at some industry factors and trends to kind of compare the village against. And one factor is that a National Association for Water has a kind of a goal, if you can say that, of about a typical water system should be at about 25 main breaks per 100 miles of a rate. And as you can see here, we're kind of increasing in the village. We're at about 59 in the past year. But what's most important is you can see that kind of the trends, unfortunately, starting to go back up again. I do know in that 2012, 2013, you see that spike. There was some kind of modifications to your operations in the system. So that's why that's kind of a unique outlier. And we don't look at that as kind of a standard for how the system is doing.
Yeah, that's when we brought our reverse osmosis water plant online.
Exactly.
And,
yeah, thank you. All right, so now let's dive into the next level of how we're taking a look at this on the water in particular. So like I mentioned, we're looking at the likelihood of a water main failing and then the consequence of that main failing. So what I mean by that is the likelihood is, like we looked at those past graphs, something is in those ages, those decades, we're seeing those trends increase. That gives us the indication there's a higher likelihood that other mains in those from those same decades may be more prone to failure. One factor that we take a look at then is how many breaks have occurred on those. So if you're seeing a lot of breaks occurring, that's already main that's starting to have some issues. We take a look at that again as another indication of a likelihood of failure because it's seeing breaks in those areas. So those two criteria are from the two of the key ones that we're using in our evaluation for the existing water system. And then for consequence of failure, we're looking at a variety of different factors on this. So we're taking a look at what kind of customer base is it serving? Is it serving an area with more critical care needs? Because then that's more important that we're making sure that water is able to get there. Also, we're looking at the accessibility. If there's a main break in a side yard or a rear yard, and it's a lot more difficult for staff to be able to get to repair, that has a higher consequence of failure. Another example of a couple things that we're looking at from a water system perspective is if it's got lower water operating pressure already and there's a main break there, then you're going to have bigger issues within your system. So those are just a few of the examples that we're looking at for the consequence of failure. And I'm not going to go into the details of how we put all those pieces together, but they're all, mathematically applied. And when you see us next, we'll be able to share how some of those risk are starting to show for the water main. But those are the criteria and the factors that we're working on and working with staff with. One of the other infrastructures that we're taking a look is, of course, your sewer. So not probably surprisingly, sewer installation trends follow your water main trends. And again, a majority of your sewer was put in the 1920s, reaching 100 years of lifespan. And that's a very long time for a sewer to be working for a community. And again, you'll see those 50s and 60s, again, the higher peaks of sewer installation. And when I'm talking sewer, again, it's sanitary, storm, and combined, so all three. Some of the likelihood of failure factors that we're looking at for that, again, are material. So material type may give us an indication of a potential for failure. As well as, instead of main breaks, we have areas where there's been history of flooding or other challenges. So we're able to use that kind of a data from the village to take a look at. And again, for the type of pipe, we're looking at how much life we can expect to get out of it. Some of the consequence of failure factors we're looking at are the size. So if a really large sewer, greater than 18-inch fails, it's got a lot larger consequence on the area around it than maybe a smaller area. Similar to the water main, what it's serving, whether it's a residential area or there's another major user in that area. Accessibility, and then the type, so storm, sanitary, and combined we give it the highest consequence of that failing, because that's moving a lot of water for you. So with that, I'm actually going to pass it over to Rich, and he's going to take us through a little bit of a conversation of some of the other infrastructure.
Thank you.
I'm going to do this
Go.
juggling act
Yes.
with this stuff here. Well, happy daylight savings time
Yes.
to everybody. I'm sure everybody doesn't miss that hour they had of extra sleep this past weekend. Thanks for having us. This has been a really great journey so far. One of the most amazing things I want to point out before we get to the survey, which we will get to here tonight, and I think you'll be really impressed, is the sheer amount. Oh, yes, sir. The sheer number of people that have responded. And again, we'll get into that detail later, but that really says a lot about your community, that people are so interested in responding. Once we move from water and sewer, then we get to the surface. Obviously, the roadway surface plays a large role in the process here. The way the community has evaluated their roads in the past and continues to evaluate their roads is using the Modified Pavement Condition Index. It's a little bit unusual in that it's not on a 0 to 100 scale. It's on a 0 to 16 scale, 16 being the worst numerically. Obviously, that translates mathematically into a 0 to 100 situation. But as you can see, much of the roadway network is in a 0 to 8 evaluated category, which implies it's in relatively good condition. And as you go to the 16, which is the bottom of the scale, and those would be the red roads that are highlighted here on this map, you have somewhat less. But in general, the road system, is I would characterize it as average overall. Here's a breakdown of what that condition looks like. As you can see, the highest number of roads, 7 miles of roads, is rated at a 1, and again, that's very good condition. And you can see the distribution is pretty much spread out, throughout the ratings as it gets lower and lower, or worse and worse as you move to the right. Average daily traffic is a measure that we use as engineers to say basically that if you're from the 0 to 499 on that graphic to the right, that just means it's not a very well-trafficked road, or it's a residential road. And many of the streets in town, as you can probably guess, are primarily residential roads. And as you slide over to the right again, those are more heavily trafficked roads, and there's a lot less of those in Western Springs. As Carolyn shared with you on the water and sewer system, we have likelihood of failure factors. So our likelihood of failure factor is that evaluation system that I just shared with you here today. So that score provides our likelihood of failure factor, and as you get larger in terms of the rating number, the higher the score. And that's how we will evaluate roads throughout the community. That's coupled with the priority nature of a road, which determines their consequence of failure factor. So that kind of offsets a little bit whether or not if a road is in really bad shape, but it's not an essential road or a road that's heavily trafficked, then it kind of will offset that risk score and give us an overall score to complement the water and sewer work. Now, keep in mind that everything starts with the utility evaluation, and then the roads. Obviously, we want to make sure that when we recommend a final plan to the community, that we don't have utility work on one street on where a brand new road was just put in. So our goal and the process is here to make sure that we make common sense decisions and recommendations where we consider the water and sewer evaluations at the same time as the roadway. Just a few other factors that we make when we're looking at all of these three primary pieces of infrastructure. Certainly, water and sewer has individual things that will apply, but the common theme that you'll see throughout here, other than some of these specialty items, is public input. And again, we'll get into that a little bit later on in the discussion, but public input is essential to making sure we make good decisions for the community. But as you can see, there's a whole list of other things that are a little bit less tangible than some of the hard details that we've shared with you in our scoring systems. The way this all comes together is we take those likelihood of failure criteria and the consequence of failure, and we generate a risk score. So what that will ultimately do is generate a risk score so we can take projects throughout the community, assign them the highest risks, and then make recommendations for you to consider over the coming years when you make your capital improvement plan final decisions. And again, that's kind of the key to the whole process right there, is take likelihood of failure scores, consequence of failures, bring them together, and generate a score. And those highest scored projects will ultimately be the ones that we'll recommend for you to entertain over the coming years.
So that will allow us to easily prioritize these projects.
Indeed.
Based on those risks.
Indeed.
Thank you.
One other piece of infrastructure that we want to chat with you briefly about tonight is you have a fiber network throughout the community. We are taking a look at that and looking for opportunities and looking for projects that perhaps give you some advantage as a community. Some of those projects also may be recommended as a result of infrastructure that, let's say, may be susceptible to flooding or other, potential disruptions. So that's part of our evaluation process as well. Lighting, currently, as we go through the community, you've got a very good lighting system. There is up-to-date current lights in many cases, but there are also other opportunities for you to update, opportunities for greening the community. Something we talk about a lot in the lighting world is dark sky compliance and just making sure that the lighting levels in town are good, but that we're not sending light pollution out to the sky. So we'll be looking at those opportunities. One such area is the metro platforms and parking lots and areas like that. They're highly ranked projects. If you don't have enough lighting there, that we would put that on par with water and sewer and roads and some of the other projects we'll be talking to you about. We've had an opportunity to review your sidewalk policy and the information that's been collected over the last 17 years or so. This will be, I'm sure, a topic of discussion as we go forward. There's opportunities. I think there's approximately 20% of the community that doesn't have sidewalks currently, so it's an opportunity to talk about that. I know in 2021, as a board, you discussed that. You looked at Safe Route to School grants and some other opportunities to do some of that. But those are some things that we'll be bringing to bear as part of the process as well. We have, as part of our team, Williams Architects, who's our partner. We've gone through all of the village's facilities. And in doing so, we've had an opportunity to really get an understanding of where those facilities sit, some of the strengths and some of the weaknesses of each facility. We look at the structure, we look at the MEP systems, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, the architectural, just the flow of things. And we noted tonight that it got fairly crowded in here tonight. So, and some of those space type discussions have been had as well. Unlike some of the other infrastructure where it's very maybe scientific, we can pinpoint age, material, some of the things that go into the evaluation. With facilities, a lot of it is observation. Some of it is just how does the heating and cooling work in here, and some of it's structural in nature. So it's not quite as easy to shoehorn that into the rest of the evaluation. But as a team and working with the village staff, we've devised a system by which we think we're going to be able to prioritize projects and at least put them on par with other projects within the community. And some of those, not to get ahead of myself, as you can note, there's a couple things on here, like the roof drains, they don't drain like they should, and that could create some problems for the structure itself, and obviously it takes off the life off the roof. But those are the types of projects that we've identified, and then we're going to sort through those and as a group make some recommendations there that will equalize it with the other projects as well. Well, that said, I think maybe it's time for some survey conversation.
Thank you. All right, so we wanted to take just the last couple minutes here to share some preliminary screenshots of the survey results so far. And we know those are still coming in, so we're constantly checking this and taking a look at this. But we're really excited. And I think right now Casey has access to these results. I'm not sure if he's worked through them all yet, but the village has been able to access these results too to move forward.
Great.
All right, so that is our presentation. So overall, I think we're moving along at a rapid clip here. We've got some great momentum going right now. So the team is working on all of that risk assessment for the infrastructure right now. So we're hoping next month we'll be able to have a preliminary discussion on the first draft of all of the risk assessment for the infrastructure. So we're looking forward to getting that next for the next phase for you, and hopefully we'll be back and have some more details to share.
Thank you.
Any questions?
How long is that survey open for?
We'll keep it open as long as the village likes us to keep it open.
Okay. And about how long would it take an average resident to complete it, do you think?
Anybody who filled it out? Anybody? 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
So not too much of your time. So
Yeah.
any residents here who have not yet completed the survey, please, take the time to do that. We do value your input, and it will help our consultant as well as the board help inform our decisions of how we spend your dollars, the public funds, to address infrastructure issues.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
There is a link to the survey on our website, and there is a QR code posted on the wall over here where you
Ooh,
entered
nice.
that Casey put up earlier today. If anybody has not taken the survey and would like to do so, that's an easy way to link.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions from the board?
That's good.
No?
All right. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move on to the citizen comment portion of our meeting. Like we did at our last meeting, I would like to open this up just for general comments that are not related to 5G or the agreement that the village the village board will be discussing later on. There will be a public comment meeting, portion of the meeting open again following any questions or discussion from the board on that specific topic. So is there anyone, well, first, I would like to recognize, I see there's a Boy Scout in the room. Thank you for attending. Do you have any questions so far? No. Okay. Well, welcome, and if you do have any questions, once the meeting's concluded, please come up, and any one of us would be more than happy to talk with you. Okay. That being said, I would like to open it up now for public comment not related to 5G. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on any other issue? Okay, hearing none, we'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to old business. We have one item coming out of the General Government Committee for discussion, so Trustee Terrell, you have the floor.
Yes, there will be a motion regarding some licensing. I did discuss this back in our February workshop.
No, this is under old business, Jim.
Right, number one.
Yeah,
We
There's a
did.
motion.
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
motion.
I could just go into the motion.
Yes,
then. This
please.
was- What I was going to say is we were
Oh,
supposed
I'm
to do this
sorry.
in February. We're supposed to do this in
Where are we
February, but
going?
I did this. I wanted to. It was put forth to the whole board. But my motion is motion to waive the competitive bidding process and approve and authorize the purchase from BDO Digital under its governmental pricing schedule of Windows Server 2022 per core software licenses consisting of 16 core licenses at a cost of $30,780 and 4 two-core licenses at a cost of $3,080 for a total cost of $33,860.
thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. And I apologize, Jim, for stepping on your toes. Is there any discussion? We did entertain this in February, but now it's up for approval tonight. Okay, hearing none, may we have the roll call vote, please, Clerk Timick?
Yes, President Gallagher. Trustee Chen?
Aye.
Trustee Fink?
Aye.
Trustee John?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph is absent. Trustee Carroll?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll now move on to consideration of the agenda items during the workshop portion of our meeting. First up is the committee report from Planning and Zoning Committee. Trustee John is the chair of that committee. You have the floor.
Thank you. As you know, at the last village board meeting, we discussed the status of Crown Castle small cell permit application of June 2022, and the settlement agreement negotiated by the village attorney and the attorneys for Crown Castle. Attorney Mike Mars is here again this evening to provide an overview of the settlement agreement, and I'm going to defer to Mr. Mars.
I'd also like to introduce Mr. Chapman, our professional consultant on this as well.
Thank you. All right, so as I recall, last time we were here, we did not have the agreement before you. We now do. It's in your packet, and it's broken down into several sections. It provides some background on the issue, and as we discussed last time, the kind of catalyst for this agreement was the fact that we were able to work through some design issues and get all but one proposed pole at this point to be co-located on either ComEd transmission poles or on streetlights, wooden poles that will be replaced by Crown Castle, and the light standard will be put back on the poles along with their equipment. So that's kind of one of the big benefits to the village in accepting this agreement is we're getting these accepted designs, whereas when it was originally proposed or originally contemplated, we were looking at a very large number of new poles. And so we're trying to minimize, for aesthetic reasons, the proliferation of new poles in the village. We've been going back and forth with Crown Castle since last July on their single application that they have in right now. We anticipate 29 more coming in, in the somewhat near future. And this deals with all 30 of those locations. And we had, a lot of back and forth in correspondence and between staffs, and then more recently, kind of everybody talking and trying to work through the open issues. And so in addition to the approved designs, we have a number of places where we were at odds on either our village code requirements or our design standards. where we had said, you know, this is what we have on the books, and Crown Castle had said to us that those were overreaches in terms of either state or federal law, because as a reminder to everybody, the state has taken away a lot of the local government control in this area. The telecommunications providers are able to come in to villages and attach infrastructure to existing village utility poles, or to ComEd poles, or to put up new poles in our rights of way, and we don't have the ability generally to say no. So we worked through a number of the issues and have set forth in here what we call agreements, compromises, modifications, and waivers regarding our local code provisions and design standards as to how these 30 applications will be handled. And then we just have some general, you know, attorney-type language at the end with boilerplate and covering some of the general general subjects like court venue and stuff in the event that we need to go enforce this agreement. So we continue to go back and forth with Crown Castle. This is a draft, but we're at this point there's just a small open issue or two that we plan on addressing. Otherwise, I think we're most of the way there on this agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so before we move on to public comment, any comments or questions from anybody on the board?
I have one. Can you elaborate on the 29 extra applications that are coming? Like, you mean more sites?
Right, so they've applied for one site right now.
Okay.
Okay, kind of a initial application to get this process going and work through these issues. But in order to effectively roll out 5G in a community where such as this, where there are a lot of wireless things in everybody's house, whether it's computers and iPads and phones, or whether it's, you know, your Nest thermostat or your Ring doorbell system or your smart dishwasher or refrigerator. All these things require 5G service, and the way that is being done as opposed to 4G, which was primarily done through macro cell, the tall towers, small cell 5G service is being rolled out via these smaller, less powerful antennas that are placed on at lower heights throughout communities on existing infrastructure for the most part. So those 30 total locations are what Crown Castle and their customer need to provide effective 5G service to Western Springs.
And that is just one side of the village.
Right, that's
so just the west
I keep
side.
forgetting that. That's just the west side of town. We're unaware of any imminent plans to do the east side of town, but at some point they'll be back, or someone will be back with additional pole sites for the east side of town.
What are the parameters on north and south? Is it all the way to the north, all the way to the south?
Yeah, do you know?
There's, at this time on the map, I believe there's nothing in the Timber Trails area, and I'm not sure that there's anything in Ridgewood at all. So really from 55th Street to the north.
Good question.
So this agreement will cover all of Crown Castle's applications.
Correct.
It will not be if any other provider comes in? Would this be
That's
a
correct.
governing
So,
document? Okay, or if they put in for the east side of town, would we use this document for Crown Castle?
It won't cover that.
Okay.
But I imagine if it's the same combination of Crown Castle and stuff, and everything's gone well on the west side of town, that we would look at something similar. And I think we touched last time on, the other providers. No one's aware of any plans by T-Mobile to roll out in small cells in the various communities around here. And AT&T appears, because of their existing network, to have less need for small cells, although they may come for some within the village.
So this agreement is addressing the imminent applications of Crown
Correct.
Castle. Okay.
What does happen with the east side, east of Wolf Road? Do they still have 5G service, or is this just a test?
Stu, do you know?
There's a microphone right there, too.
Oh, it is, all right. There is 5G coverage on the east side of town. There are macro cells that serve the east side of Western Springs that have 5G antennas and radios on them. They're much taller than the small cells that are contemplated by Crown Castle and their carrier. However, the reason you have small cells, as was discussed at the last meeting, is to fill in coverage gaps and to build capacity so that there are adequate numbers of channels for people to be able to transmit and receive. So at some point, there will probably be engineering studies done by Crown Castle or AT&T or T-Mobile to determine if, where additional spaces for small cells should go. So far, there hasn't been a rush from anyone to build small cells on the east side, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a need. It just means that perhaps right now the macro cells are doing their job and are able to fulfill the bandwidth requirements of the population on the east side.
Any additional questions, comments? All right, so we're going to move into public comment right now. With the full event agenda this evening, we want to be respectful to everyone's time. As a reminder, public comment for each individual will be limited to 3 minutes per person, which will be adhered to. And to support this, Village Manager Bear will keep a timer, which will signal each speaker in the final 10 seconds to provide notice of those remarks. If somebody's already made the points you plan to make, please consider simply stating your name and indicating that you support the comments of those prior speakers. And please, as a reminder, please state your name before you're making your comments. So, public comment is open. Yep, and just come on up.
Get the mic.
Thanks. First time speaker, didn't know the rules. I'm Catherine Beatty. I live in Old Town North. And is it okay if I ask a question about this? Okay. Does the Crown Castle installation only benefit Verizon customers?
That's my understanding. Michael, do you want to verify that?
Okay. Do we know what percentage of Western Springs residents use Verizon?
No, we don't.
That information's proprietary to the carrier, so we don't have that information.
Maybe we could do a survey. Okay, thank you. And then my other question was, I live near Oak Street and Western. So at one point, I believe the conversation was that while there might be 30 of these installations that happen, potentially 2 of them would be different, bigger, more robust, and then the others would not be. Is that not the case now when they're talking about a single application and then 29 more? Are they all standardized, all the same?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any 2 being more robust than the others.
So I saw that you guys posted that attachment with other examples in LaGrange Park and Oak Brook of different installs that are already there. So I was able to go and look at one. Is that the expectation from Crown Castle? It will look like those? Is that why you guys posted those intersections or those addresses?
Well, I'm not sure which exhibits you're referring to, but are you
on the village
okay.
website? Oh, okay.
So at our last meeting, there was a request, and our consultant, Stu Chapman, was able to provide us some examples of those types of systems that are already in place. Stu, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, I think I can. Oak Brook and other suburbs surrounding it have been approached in the past by AT&T and Verizon, and before it was merged with T-Mobile, Sprint, to install small cells in various portions of the village of Oak Brook. There were some that were installed on York Road. There were some that are installed around Oak Brook Center Mall. There are some that are installed along 22nd Street. I don't know which ones that you saw.
The York Road ones with Verizon.
Okay.
Mhm.
Very familiar with those. I worked
Okay.
on those several years ago.
So do you think those are what we could expect in Western Springs?
Something similar to it, but not exactly the same. The reason I say that is because technology has changed a little bit since those two were installed. Actually, those are 4G small cells for the most part on York Road. The new ones have actually a smaller antenna footprint at the top and different types of radio. They're more attuned towards 5G than 4G, and they operate on different frequency blocks than the York Road cell site. That said, the York Road cell sites could be they're called LTE, long-term evolution. They can be modified or upgraded without totally rebuilding from scratch. So those could be upgraded, at such time that Verizon needs to address more 5G customers than 4G. 4G is kind of fading away, and they can be switched out.
Okay. I guess I'm just wondering, can we see exactly what these are going to look like? Like the ones that are being applied for here?
There's a picture in the application packet
Okay.
with a depiction of it's a mock-up that you'll see the before poll and the after poll, and that is more what we're looking at, and it's on our website.
Okay, so it's in the same 5G section on the website?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in the packet. You'll have to scroll through some other pages, but there is an exhibit.
Okay. I'll check that out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
I'd like to approach with a question for Stu, if you can identify these photos.
Please come up. Please come up.
Hello again.
Hello.
My name's Gary Bizzoni. I'm 4600 block of Clausen. I too took a little tour today and went down York Road and over by Oak Brook Mall. So, Stu, if I can show you a couple of these, and
Yeah,
the
sure.
attorney, if you could tell us if this is what we're to expect, if this is what we can expect. Easy for you guys, for him to come up, or me to go over there?
You can bring it up.
Please bring it over to him. Thank you.
The one along York Road by Butler's.
Yes, I'm very much aware of that. It's been several weeks.
So is that a Verizon or is that somebody else's?
No, that's a Verizon. The architecture on the top antennas that you see here, the panel antennas that you see there, are a little different than what you would actually see here. They're smaller. The ones proposed for
Is it a
Oak Brook
wood
would be,
pole?
or I'm sorry, for Western
Is
Springs
it a
would be
wood
smaller.
Is
The
it a wood
radio
pole?
one, there's a AC power disconnection switch
Did it look like a wood?
and a fiber interface and 2 radios. The radios will be smaller. The AC disconnect will be about the same size.
Let me go to this one. Just,
All right,
sorry to
fine.
interrupt, but I know we're tight for time. So I did see those exhibits, and those
Yes.
were, we talked last time about where those junction boxes would be. You
Mm-hmm.
said you were going to try to raise them as high as possible to get them out of sight line. So this showed fairly minimal, maybe a couple junction boxes and a small antenna.
Yep.
This one showed a much more robust assembly of,
Right. So
Right.
the equipment
I'll call
is
it
considered.
technical equipment to be nice.
Yeah, I don't even know if all that is 5G or 4G equipment, but the equipment has continued to get smaller. So each year, it gets.
Okay, well, these were listed as examples for us to see, so thank you
No, I
for
know.
putting
Well,
those 10 or so. And this
yeah.
is the one, I'll call it Nordstrom. over by Oak Brook Mall, which is an
Okay.
aluminum pole and
Right.
much cleaner
Yes,
and
that's-
less stuff.
yes,
which is,
that
I think, a better
one-
example if you said,
Yeah.
this is what we're getting as opposed to the York Road version.
Yeah, that's going to be closer to it, although this one has a shroud over the antennas. I don't know
Yeah.
that.
It also
I-
has a metal pole where all the cabling goes
Right,
nicely
it's
concealed up in the pole.
exactly, very. This is probably a little closer, with the exception of the shroud. I mean, that's something that, that's a concealment issue that maybe can be discussed with Crown Castle. But the word I'm looking, auxiliary equipment, the radios and the switch boxes, the interface boxes are smaller. They're more like what you would see for this installation here.
Okay, and the box down at the base is, we are not getting, right?
That's something
The head-end
different. No,
equipment will
that's,
cause-
yeah.
Although this was a Verizon box. Okay, time's up.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else like to make public comment? Heidi?
Okay, first of all, I sent an email to the board earlier. I don't
Where's
know
your
how-
microphone? Oh, okay.
My name is Heidi Hansen. I sent an email to the board earlier, and I don't know if you've had a chance to receive it, but
did.
The Village of Western Springs was recognized in November of 2022 for the quality of its ordinance. And I just wanted to say thank you to Kleinthorpe and Jenkins and to the village employees that worked on that. I know a lot of work went into it, and it shows, and it's been recognized.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we were very pleased to see that. We did not know about that, so thank you. We all worked very hard on it, so thank you for recognizing that.
I also want to thank whoever was working till 4:30 on Saturday to get that draft out.
It's Michael. And Ellen.
Well, a couple things I want to talk about today, and I may go over the 3 minutes, so I'm hoping you will be kind. One of them is pentachlorophenol, and I sent some information out to the village. You have it. It's being passed out now. Basically, it's necessary to coat wooden posts with pesticides so that they don't rot. They have to survive for 40 to 70 years, and so and they don't have to be, repeatedly recoated. The pesticide is very powerful and very long-lasting. And there's about 5 pesticides in use now for coating wooden poles. One of them is particularly bad. It's been banned throughout most of the world, frankly. The US EPA has banned it too, although they came late to the party. But they allowed a 5-year off-ramp. So we're about a year into this off-ramp, and they allowed that so that the industry wouldn't be disrupted and supplies could be basically used up.
Ms. Hanson,
Not loud enough?
No, I read it and I was alarmed. I looked on the EPA. I saw that it is being banned and it has that phase-out period. So we are asking our attorneys to look into this and perhaps revise our ordinance so that we make sure that this does not go up in Western Springs.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was my ask. And I would also ask that you coordinate or contact Clarendon Hills and Hinsdale and have them do the same thing. Because what
Absolutely.
they put on their land can reach us.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the ordinance itself. There's a number of drafting issues. I understand it's still in draft. But one of the ones that bothers me the most is where certain things have been modified, pieces of ordinance have been modified, it doesn't always explain what is being modified. So it might say, this is in satisfaction of these requirements, but we don't know what those requirements are. Some of that is due to the fact that the headings are a little unclear and sometimes they have the wrong sites. But it would make so much more sense and be so much more easy to read if the settlement agreement itself recited what was being modified, just quoted, so that you would know what the change was changing.
Do you have a specific example?
Pardon?
Do you have a specific example?
Sure. Okay, on 4N and P, minimizing visual or aesthetic impacts. There are a number of requirements, including one that says the village may prohibit the installation of facilities in order to preserve the health, safety, and welfare of the community. It appears that that's been taken out, but I don't think that was the intent. There's also one that says does not impair the quality of lands being traversed or create a safety hazard to pedestrians, bicycle riders, and motorists using the right-of-way. That appears to have been superseded too, and again, I don't think that was the intent. I think these are just drafting issues that can be cleaned up, but I wanted to draw the attention to them.
Thank you. And we'll take a closer look at that, but as you know, we cannot regulate away anything based on issues of safety.
Well, again, this is pedestrian safety walking around the construction zone. I don't think that's the same thing.
Right. Absolutely. We'll take a look. Thank you.
Thanks. Also, in Section 3, A, B, C, D, and F, it says the village must promptly approve future applications. But there's also a shot clock running, so you've got two different standards. You've got promptly and the shot clock. So does promptly mean it has to be done before the shot clock runs? Again, a drafting issue, but I wanted to bring it to attention.
Thank you.
On 3E, Crown Castle picks the spots they want to use. They pick the spots they want to use, and the village has the authority to ask them to move it up to 200 feet away. And I would like a little better explanation of this process. Is it ongoing right now? Is it something that happens after the application comes in? And who makes the decision? How transparent is it? Just please someone explain to me how it works.
Well, it's my understanding we'll work with Crown Castle. If they have a permit application, within 200 feet, say, of an existing pole, we'll work with them to relocate that to the existing pole, for instance. But I don't know if staff has a more thorough explanation than that. Matt's not here tonight. Is that it?
Right. So that's consistent with the state statute. When they propose a new pole, we can suggest existing poles within 200 feet of that. Right. Here, and they have to go on that existing pole, absent any substantial cost difference or technological limitations that they might face. Now here, all but one of the proposed poles, at least as they're planned now, are going to be co-located on decommissioned light poles or on ComEd transmission poles. So those are instances where we are going to work with ComEd to get those locations. And so those shouldn't really be issues. There is the possibility that ComEd will say, in a particular instance, that this pole is not going to work, in which case we would work with Crown Castle to identify something, again, within 200 feet that it could go on.
Don't tell me I've run over twice.
Yes.
Okay, I'll move on.
All right. This will probably be the last one, though.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
3F says existing underground fiber may be utilized. And when I first read that, because I know the village has its own fiber. Are you talking about letting Crown Castle use the village's fiber?
Potentially.
Okay, and will the village be charging Crown Castle for that?
We have agreements with everybody who uses our fiber at this time.
Would it be good if Heidi provides the questions?
To us, so we
Yeah.
can address them individually. Would you do that?
I will do that. I have one more that really isn't amenable to being written down. And that is,
And please, just keep the mic close to your face so people at home can hear you. I want them to be able to hear you.
will do. Okay, I believe you've all seen this. I think this is Exhibit H to the agreement. The exhibits don't have letters, so I'm guessing that that's what this one is. It says this is what would be provided to the 4 houses surrounding the one pole that's going up, each pole that's going up. And it doesn't say much. It doesn't say that a pole's going up. It doesn't say that there's the potential for radiation. But what it does say really bothers me. It says, we're making vital infrastructure updates to your neighborhood. And the first name that comes out is Western Springs. It really sounds like Western Springs is doing the work, that this is a Western Springs project. And I think it is misrepresenting Western Springs' involvement. And I'm hoping that the Village of Western Springs can prevent its name from being used in this manner. I just wanted to draw that to your attention.
Okay, thank you.
You're saying right here, the QR code.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Hi.
Hi, I'm Pam Conlon, but I'm reading a letter from Kristen Rosenberg, who's at 4241 Linden Avenue. And Kristen says, first, I'd like to thank the Western Springs Village Board members and staff for their ongoing efforts related to 5G over the past couple of years. Your willingness to work with residents to the best of your ability has been greatly appreciated. At recent local board meetings in Western Springs, Clarendon Hills, and Hinsdale, 5G discussions have primarily focused on adverse impacts to health and property values. However, an equally important issue that has not been adequately addressed is cybersecurity and safety. It is well known that wireless signals and frequencies are vulnerable to hacking. Shouldn't this issue be addressed before Crown Castle and local carriers encourage residents to purchase devices that turn their homes into smart homes? Mr. Chapman has stated at recent board meetings that 5G infrastructure is needed to connect to the Internet of Things. We're being told that one of the reasons the 5G infrastructure needs to go up in such a mass scale is because everyone is going to be purchasing a multitude of smart devices for their home. We believe that once people are educated to what is already happening and how every smart device they purchase for their home can be hacked, that they will think twice before spending their money on smart devices. Here are some examples of what has already taken place. ABC News reported a story of an in-home smart camera getting hacked in a child's bedroom. The hacker tells the girl to destroy her room, and she is visibly upset. In Elmhurst, Illinois, a carjacker used what looks like an iPad to hack into the key fob that was inside a man's house to steal his car in his driveway. Common Spirit, the second largest nonprofit U.S. hospital chain, experienced an unprecedented hack that disrupted healthcare services. Even telecom companies like T-Mobile are experiencing data breaches. As the proliferation of smart devices is encouraged, who will be held accountable for cybersecurity and safety? And will any provisions be written into the agreement to protect the residents of Western Springs? Mr. Chapman has also stated that the reason for this rollout is because people want 5G. Mr. Chapman, do you have any data to support this statement? If so, it would be appreciated if you could share any petitions, polls, or surveys that you may have collected to support your statement. Honestly, there's 2 more paragraphs. Honestly, most people do not understand the full implications of having 5G, since the reality of the infrastructure is not explained or shown in the slick, glossy 5G commercials advertised to the general public. Now, at first, people want 5G in their community, but then they typically change their mind once they find out that they will have a radiation-emitting wireless facility forced on their property easement just feet from their home. And so, with all of the uncertainty related to this technology, again, will the Western Springs board members include any provisions in the agreement to hold Crown Castle and Telecom accountable for adverse impacts to residents in our community, including injury, loss of property value, security issues, and safety? The rollout of this new technology so close to homes and public places is unprecedented. I request that the village take steps to protect the community from the potential negative effects that may result from the deployment of this technology in our community. Thank you for your time and attention, Kristen Rosenberg.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Conlon, and thank you, Kristen Rosenberg. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, anyone else?
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Nancy Perlman. Thank you so much for your service to Western Springs. For numerous years, many of us have been speaking with local officials, as you well know, working on legislation with legislators, educating the community and our Illinois legislators on the 4G, 5G topic, including working with former Representative Mazzocchi, as well as Senator Glowiak. And our leadership team wants to thank you very much, President Gallagher, for being on the hearing for the Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act. You were the only president or mayor in the whole state of Illinois who was there and spoke up. We want to thank you for that. We worked for 7 days a week for several years to educate our legislators and have the Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act sunset or to amend it. We were told in a hearing on the act that this was a law written by telecom for telecom. Representative Mazzocchi and several leaders in Illinois, including myself, were denied a seat at the table by Representative Larry Walsh. He only allowed AT&T and the Illinois Municipal League to discuss amendments that would have given our municipalities more local control, and you know we need that now, and would have been a compromise with telecom, but AT&T told the legislators that if you don't pass this act again, we will not bring broadband to downstate Illinois. So here we are in the 11th hour again, with many residents saying they still don't consent to have these in front of their homes. These small cells are being forced upon all of us by an industry that just cares about its profits and has no conscience to what it's doing to all living beings on our planet. We aren't asking for smart cities with driverless cars and faster downloads on our cell phones. The industry's marketing is telling us we need it. In their commercials, they aren't showing the antennas emitting extremely high levels of microwave radiation 24/7 in front of our homes. If people knew the truth, many more would be speaking up to say they don't consent. Not to mention the telecom industry isn't doing any safety studies on the biological effects of 5G. Not to mention our own FCC, even after being sued, isn't updating their guidelines to be protective of biological harm from these antennas, even though they were told a year and a half ago to review the independent peer-reviewed scientific studies proving biological harm, and hundreds of letters of people who have already had their health injured by these antennas. So I have a couple questions. The Crown Castle settlement agreement says that they have a categorical exclusion from NEPA. I spoke with a former FCC NEPA attorney who said there still needs to be an RF study done for each facility as proof of NEPA compliance, even if other checklist items are presumed satisfied and the project is categorically excluded. So I have a couple quick questions. Do you have an RF study proving these antennas comply with FCC guidelines?
It's part of the agreement. Mr. Mars or Mr. Chapman, do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, it specifies that they will provide one for each equipment array that they are rolling out in the village.
Right.
But they haven't, I didn't see anything in the packet that says there is one yet, though. Correct.
There isn't one up yet.
But they, right, there was one up, but supposedly they were going to provide something before they were up. You're saying when it's put up?
They will. No, they'll provide it prior to us issuing a permit.
And will it be an independent RF engineer, not from Crown Castle or Verizon or such, that's going to be doing this?
There are several companies that specialize in this. LaGrange Park hired one of them to do an RF study on a macro cell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain that the company that's hired to do that will be independent and unbiased about it.
And it will show
The agreement
levels.
provides the EME study will be conducted by an independent third-party professional engineer.
Okay. I just would like to make sure that they do it and it actually shows levels and such. Also, how do we know that there's a gap in coverage to Verizon customers in Western Springs? Has there been something showed to the village?
But we can't make them show that, and we assume that they, Crown Castle has determined that they need this based on their own internal reviews of, or with their partner who they're doing it on behalf of, that they've identified a need for these.
Okay. Have there been people in the village that have asked for this service to come be here, that Verizon customers that have said that they need this?
There have been people who have approached me throughout these past 3 years that have said that they support 5G in the village and would like to see it implemented.
Okay, is it possible to do a survey of the residents to say, and to see truly what percentage of them do want this and to understand what it means for the infrastructure of the village?
Not at this time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perlman. It's nice to see you again. Thank you for coming to Western Springs. Oh, great.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Joe Podlewski. I live at the 4700 block of Franklin in lovely Fairview Estates. As Heidi Hansen mentioned, the settlement agreement was delivered Saturday night, cutting into my valuable Svengoolie watching time. And I'm just wondering, is this still on the agenda for the March 20th meeting? And given the fact that this was delivered late Saturday, today's Monday, March 20th is only a week away. I wonder if the board would consider kicking this until a later board meeting, so to give the board as well as concerned citizens more time to review the settlement.
Thank you for your suggestion, but we have been working together with Clarendon Hills and Hinsdale throughout all this with Crown Castle, and at this time, I don't feel it would be prudent to delay it. We all have a week to thoroughly review it. I already have, so I think we have time.
So it's still on the agenda for next Monday?
Correct.
Okay. Couple of questions specific to the agreement. Currently, there are telephone poles being stored about a block away from my house on 48th Street between Howard and Franklin. They've been there, there's 6 poles, they've been there for about over a year. And I'm wondering if the settlement agreement addresses at all storage of poles prior to installation on easements or parkways, nothing?
Oh, that's a good point, though.
For section 3G, and I'll direct this to the attorney, can you describe roughly what's in group exhibit G, because it's apparently confidential or not included?
Sure, they're drawings of the type that are submitted with an application created by Crown Castle engineers with the diameter of the poles, the height, the width, the equipment mounting, just all the technical specifications that you would expect in a pole design.
So that's not available yet? Is that why it wasn't included?
Right, those are confidential and proprietary to Crown Castle. So they have asked that those designs not be publicly available, which is something that they're entitled to if it would cause them competitive harm. We have provided in the packet, as you saw, these depictions, which show essentially the same thing without the technical specifications of what these poles would look like.
Okay. Has that been provided to the village? The confidential information that's been withheld, has that been provided to the village for the village to review?
I think it was previously, yes.
So the village has seen group, so they've seen group exhibit G, but nobody else has.
Correct.
All
Well,
right.
the board members are, it's available to the board members. It will be available. But again, it's if you're I don't know what you're looking for, but it's similar to this. It's just a sketch with technical specifications.
Oh. Okay. And then other quick question. In section 4A, what's the standoff distance?
What does that mean, or what is it?
Both. What does it mean? Can you clarify that for me?
Throw this one to you, Steve.
All right, a standoff distance is the feet away from the antenna or the radios that are being erected, such that, you know, I'm trying to explain this without going into volumes. There's a distance that's the FCC is established as being an area where you would need to wear protective gear if you're working on the pole, or if you are passing by it. There are two different sets of standards. The standoff distance is the area where you're just kind of passing through it, and the further away you get from it, the less the signal is, it's attenuating at that point.
And the
Okay.
standoff distance, as I recall on these, was 6 feet?
Yep.
5? 5 feet.
5 feet? All right. I think that answers my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, right.
Anyone else like to make a comment? Okay.
Hi, how are y'all?
Grab the microphone.
Oh, yeah.
And please say your name.
Susie Ryer, and we were just at the Clarendon Hills meeting on Tuesday, and there's still a lot of questions just because of Senate Bill 1451 that got pushed through in the middle of the night, taking our local power away. So if Senate Bill 1451 got pushed through, we're piggybacked, I think, a martial arts bill, stripping us from our local power. Any attorneys on this board right now? How is that? How are the corporations being protected? Not the health of the people. In the middle of the night, after the General Assembly ended at midnight. I'm just curious. I talked to a common law judge a few days ago, and he said that can't happen. And I said, it's happening. So,
well, there's the supremacy clause of the Constitution where the federal law preempts state law preempts municipal law, and that's what we're up against.
but local power is more powerful than federal.
Not in this case.
Not.
We've been down this road. We were down this road 3-4 years ago, and we took it as far as we could. We, as Ms. Hanson referenced, we were recognized nationally because of the steps that we took, but there is nothing else that we can do. And we have always said throughout that we will take this as far as we can, but we do not want to be sued. We feel, the board in general feels that that would be a frivolous waste of public funds. And that's the point that we're at now.
So Clarendon Hills said, this is not about the safety of the people. They said it over and over, which I don't think that should have been on,
Well, that's...
But, I know, but if it's not about the safety and it's about just where they're hanging, and the FCC says there have been no studies. The last study, the only study that was done was in 1996 on a 22-pound water-filled dummy. How could any of us want this as just, just for humanity, for humans, for children? Why are all the 5G, 4G on top of the schools while we got quarantined? I just don't, it sounds rather shady. It really does. But there are a handful of towns that said, move along to telecom. I mean, Easton, Connecticut was one. I know Tennessee was one, somewhere in Massachusetts. But I don't know if everyone's necessarily protected because of the Senate Bill 14-1 or House Bill 4653.
can't remember what I did yesterday, but I've been here since 2019. I was talking to a couple of the other ones that have been fighting this.
All right, thank you for your comments.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And one other thing, ComEd, they're not, I have a lot of ComEd people in my phone these days. ComEd is not allowed to hang on that highest wire because radiation moves like a ribbon. How are they, there were guidelines. I mean, they were not allowed to hang on that highest wire. How did that all of a sudden just, the guideline is now gone or changed, or, because that's a scary thing to put, you know, a pretty strong small cell on top of a ComEd pole, which is why I thought Madigan was indicted, but that's a whole nother story. So I guess I would like to know why, you know, why we're allowed to hang on ComEd poles when they never could before.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any additional comments?
Got a quick one, and it's probably a dumb one.
My name is Paul Johnson. I'm at 41st and Harvey in Western Springs. I'm a little bit confused about. Oh, okay. Forgot. Thanks. The one application and then the 29 additional applications, and they represent one installation, 29 other installations. Has the first one pretty much been approved, and they're going to come with 29 more?
No.
Or are we working just on one at this point?
Right. So the one is remains pending, right? And
Okay.
That will be subject to this settlement, as well as the next 29, which are anticipated to be very similar.
Okay. Do we have, so the one will be approved, or assuming approved, before they come along with the other 29?
Well, I'm not sure. They have to do some re-engineering because the original proposal did not contemplate these decommissioning of light poles and reusing all these poles. So I know Crown Castle has to do a little re-engineering. I'm not sure if that initial location they applied for will still be one of the ones, or whether they'll need to find another nearby pole because of how they configure the whole system, because the 30 all have to work together in terms of distances.
Okay.
In order for them to be effective.
Do we know the location of the first one?
Yeah, it's all on the website.
It's on the website?
location-wise,
Okay.
Yeah,
But the 29 we don't?
correct.
What kind of a timeline are we talking about?
We don't know yet.
We don't know a timeline,
Right.
okay? It's whenever they
Right.
come back.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Okay. I thank everybody for their insight and thoughts on this proposal and this agreement. I would like to recommend that we add this agreement between Western Springs and Crown Castle to the next board meeting agenda.
We'll do that.
Okay.
Excuse me, will that mean there will be a decision next board meeting or additional opportunity to comment on the settlement we just got?
Both. All right, thank you, everyone. Public comment is closed, but thank you so much for your comments and your time. It's much appreciated. We will take those suggestions, Ms. Hanson, and look at them and advise accordingly. If you'd like to come to office hours this Wednesday, I'd be happy to see you. Thank you. And that concludes your report.
And that concludes the planning and zoning section of this meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll give a moment for people to leave if they choose. How are you, Pam?
Oh.
And thank you so much. I wait too long to thank our experts, but Attorney Mars and Mr. Chapman, thank you. Much appreciated.
I know Dad's not going to stay.
That
I
was
think he
it.
thinks the meeting's over.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. All right, we'll move on with our committee reports. Trustee Chen, if you would give your report regarding properties and recreation. I tried to catch him.
Thank you.
See you next week. Thank you so much.
I still have the scouts. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. See you in a week. No problem. Thank you for your comments.
Wow, you have such endurance. I give you a lot of credit.
Scouts are the only ones still here.
I know. Bravo. Oh man. Well, we're really going to get into it now. Now we have the rest of the agenda before you. So. Okay, well, I am going to give the report from our Properties and Recreation Committee, and we met last Tuesday. And the first item is the legacy tree definition. And if you can believe it, the property, something considered the property of the village, is all of the trees that are in the parkways. So we talk a lot about trees in the Properties and Recreation Committee. And at this committee, we discussed this at length, and we recommend updating the preliminary definition of a legacy tree in the Urban Forest Management Plan. Now, as a reminder, the Urban Forest Management Plan was completed in 2022, and it is meant to provide a comprehensive roadmap and updates to the municipal code to manage, protect, and cultivate the village's urban forestry management. So the preliminary definition in the Urban Forest Management Plan only captured 20 trees, which was only 0.25% of the village's total inventory. So staff has reviewed and looked at other criteria, and the new criteria for legacy tree will result in approximately 509 trees, or 6% of the village inventory, into that category. And further, the distribution within the community of these trees presents a moderately uniform distribution among the subdivisions. So we discussed this in committee, and we recommend a change to the definition of legacy tree in our plan. So that is that portion. And then we did review some tabulations. Why am I saying tabulations? And we are recommending these from our committee. The first is the 2023 landscaping services contract, and 3 bids were received for that work, and the committee recommends Brightview Landscape Services, which provided the lowest bid at $44,004. The second was the 2023 tree removal contract. 2 bids were received, and Desiderio was the lowest bidder. Staff was unfamiliar with this company, and they contacted other municipalities who have used them, and they expressed their utmost satisfaction, and therefore staff recommends Desiderio, and the committee agrees for the 2023 tree removal contract. And number 3, the 2023 sidewalk replacement contract. For this, 8 bids were received, and the lowest bidder was Narduli Construction Company, whom staff recommends and the committee concurred. And the last piece is very unusual, very good news for the Wolf Road bike path. The project closeout balance change order. Usually it doesn't go this way, but in this case, we're closing out with a deduction totaling $47,145, to which the gritty committee full-heartedly agrees and recommends to the board to close this project out with that deduction.
Wonderful.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I won't say what the initial budget was
Okay.
on it.
It's okay.
But we're happy to take that, and we will
Yes.
put all of that on the omnibus for
Yes.
our next meeting.
Good.
Thank you, Trustee Chen.
Okay.
Moving on to the report from Public Works and Water. Trustee Fink? You have the
Thank you.
floor.
The first item is the Central Avenue Sewer Separation Roadway Reconstruction Project Supplemental Phase 1 and 2 Engineering Agreement. That's quite a mouthful there. Public Works is recommending that we pay the supplemental Phase 1 and Phase 2 engineering. They broke it up into 2 parts. It's an additional $47,937 for the first phase, and the second is $56,762. So what happened, J.J. Bennis was, we had an agreement for the engineering, Phase 1 and Phase 2 engineering for the Central Avenue project. And then COVID hit and they were doing a lot of this work from home. Both the J.J. Bennis engineering staff and the IDOT staff, and documents were being lost. So essentially what happened is they're submitting the bill late to us. So they should have sent this bill to us earlier. But Public Works kind of looked into it and the work was done and it needed to be done. Because the other part, if you guys remember, that this was the big push to get federal funding for it. So everything was kind of being pushed fast. So that's what they're saying. But bottom line is they did the work and we should pay them for the work. So that's what our recommendation.
Yeah, I mean,
Even
Western
though they
Springs
sent
pays
us
its
late
bills,
bill,
but, you know, these are, I'm hoping we do not get another bill from J.J. Bennis.
Yeah.
This should be it.
Okay.
The second item is the Woodland Avenue Reconstruction Design Contract. So we're recommending approving the contract with H.R. Green for engineering not to exceed $101,225. So this is for, on Woodland Avenue between 47th and Burlington. So it is in terrible shape. There is a 4-inch water main that's 100 years old, that it should be not 100 years old, and instead of 4 inches, 8 inches. And there is we need to separate the sanitary and the storm sewers. So if we still had roadway referendum money, this would be the next road on the list to get done. But since we're out of roadway referendum, we don't have the money to fix it, but we do have the money to do the engineering for it. So we're recommending this just to get the engineering done, so when the funds are available, Woodland is the first one on our list.
Woodland's not an FAU route, right? We don't have that potential.
That's right.
So having this shelf ready,
Is helpful, but not for that process, not for STP funds.
okay. For other grant opportunities at all, or no?
Jeff is shaking his head yes, which doesn't translate on the camera, but yes.
Yeah, obviously, there may be other opportunities that arise, but one of the main sources would be STP, and since it's not an FAU, route, we would be able to use that. But I think if you happen to drive down that street, you'll agree with what Trustee Fink said. Is it's in pretty poor shape. So we expect, or we expect at some point will be additional funds to do the work. So might as well have this well designed and ready to go. It's also a little more complicated design because they have to do basically everything. There's a water main design, the sanitary sewer has to be reevaluated, and the storm sewer would be new because we're building the Elm and Central Avenue project. We'll be able to utilize that trunk line that we're putting in this summer to separate the sewers. So this is a little bit more complicated than a typical roadway design.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Can you clarify FAU?
Federal.
Federal aid urban, it's just a designation that is given by IDOT to determine what roads are eligible for federal funding. More often than not, they're busier roads, so your Hampton, Hillgrove, Burlington, Central. Obviously, we got the Central Avenue project because of that designation from Burlington to 47th.
Likely not FAU.
It's not.
It's not.
And STP is
Surface Transportation Program.
That's part of the federal. That's how the
money
funds.
comes to.
Oh, okay,
Right.
so they're
Yeah.
related.
Right.
So
Okay.
annually, the region
Yeah.
gets a pool of federal funding for transportation projects, which would make this project potentially qualify if it was an FAU route, but it's not, yeah.
And it sounds like it's gonna be a really big project. I mean, it has a lot going on there,
Right.
so it's gonna be expensive, okay.
We do anticipate, once we get through the larger capital infrastructure plan that we had an update on this evening,
Yeah.
that this will be a project that will be near the top of the list
Yep.
and one that the board will look to fund as soon as
Okay.
possible.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Trustee Fink. Moving on to the Public Health and Safety Committee, Trustee Lewis.
No report from the committee this evening.
Okay, thank you. Then, moving on to the Finance Committee, the member, Trustee Lewis, will give that report.
Thank you, President Gallagher. First up,
lead service line replacement discussion. And although we didn't have a particular recommendation for the full board, the Finance Committee last week discussed the village's efforts to comply with a state law requiring us to develop and implement a plan to replace lead service water lines in Western Springs. Staff is now estimating we have fewer than 1,200 lead service lines in Western Springs. We plan to begin replacing those services in 2024, and according to the law, we'll have 15 years to complete the work. We've engaged an engineering firm, H.R. Green, to help us put together and submit a plan to the state. We also plan to pursue a loan from the state each year to help pay for the project. Should Western Springs not be selected to receive funding from the state revolving loan fund, and that's a possibility, the village will need to figure out other ways to pay for the work. H.R. Green estimates it will cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $11,000 to replace each service, so it will be an expensive undertaking overall. Lots more details to come as we get ready for 2024, but wanted to bring you up to date on where things stand thus far. Moving on to Tax Increment Financing District South. The Finance Committee is recommending the full board approve a budget amendment at our next meeting to facilitate the disbursement of $273,538.46 from the town South TIF district to the developer of Foxford Station. The amendment is needed in part because the disbursement of the 2021 tax levy by Cook County was delayed, and also taxes collected were higher than expected. As you may recall, the developer of Foxford Station, Hawthorne 45 LLC, will receive 70% of the incremental property taxes generated by the project until the incentive rebate cap of $2.2 million is hit. With this upcoming payment, they'll have received a total of $415,277.81, so we're making progress on that. And also at our next board meeting, the Finance Committee is recommending approval of the 2022 full-year financial report and the payment of transfer of the TIF funds to the Downtown South TIF Incentive Fund. But there's more. We also have a tax increment financing district north of the railroad tracks, and developer KLM Construction is seeking an economic incentive rebate for a mixed-use development at 514 Hillgrove Avenue. The Finance Committee is recommending the full board approve an ordinance at our next meeting to ratify the engagement of a consulting firm, Ryan LLC, to help the village evaluate the project finances. The cost of those services will be paid out of the District North funds. And lastly, the Finance Committee is also recommending the full board approve at our next meeting a budget amendment related to the Central Avenue Sewer Separation and Roadway Construction Project previously discussed by Trustee Fink. And the amendment in the amount of $104,699 is for work completed on the project in addition to and outside the scope of the original agreement. And that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are some.
Any questions? There's a lot of information in there.
The consultant that you're hiring to analyze the finances of the North.
It's to make sure the costs associated with the project are reasonable.
Okay.
To make sure that help us with projecting how many tax dollars will be generated by the project, just to get some additional finance expertise.
Okay, great. I support that. I'm glad to hear that. So that's what you're hiring that consultant to do. Okay.
And I think it's also a requirement
is
these
it?
that we do that. Right.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, then I definitely support that. Okay.
Did you want to
Yeah, just real quick, this Ryan company is actually Kane McKenna. Just for everybody's edification, you may have heard us talk about using Kane McKenna. They're a TIF consultant around the state. They were bought out by Ryan in the last month or so, so that's why the name's a little different. They are a TIF consultant and a municipal financial consultant.
Okay,
and for purposes of doing an incentive agreement like this, like we did with Foxford, we engaged a different financial consultant several years ago, for that project. we are supposed to get an independent, assessment
Okay.
or evaluation of the TIF incentive that is going to be paid out. So that's kind of a quick little extra detail.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Trustee Lewis. You're hired. No, Trustee Rudolph does a fine job
That's
as
right.
well. Moving on to the General Government Committee. Chair of that committee is Trustee Terrell. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a couple of, I have 4 items. The first 2 are kind of interesting and fun things to think about. The first order of business is a Class I liquor license sought by the Park District for its 100-year anniversary centennial celebration. It's amazing to think the Park District has been running continuously since 1923, when they put in all those pipes and lead lines and everything. The celebration will be held in Spring
Always
Rock
the parks.
from Friday, September 8th through Sunday, September 10th. The Friday event will run from 5 to 9, the Saturday event from 12 to 9, and Sunday from 12 to 8. They'll have carnival rides, music each day, food vendors, primetime racing, which I learned is they have cars that run around the hockey rink. And we will also have fireworks display on Saturday night. Park District needs a temporary use permit for the food and carnival rides. They're seeking the Class I liquor license for the sale of beer and wine. Park District in the past has asked for the Class I license at their previous events. Difference now is now they have a 3-day event. Everything they've done has been run professionally and very well. We in our committee had no problem at all recommending this to the full board. The next item I had was equally interesting. It's an application by Aaron Dorner and the Western Springs Cellar, that's his business, for a Class O license. Mr. Dorner is a Western Springs resident. He's proposing a wine tasting and retail wine shop in downtown Western Springs at 820 Burlington. That's a vacant space, which right now is that white building that says Dixon Realtors. I think Dixon is going to run the lease out to Aaron Dorner. It's on the north side of Burlington. This new wine shop is called A Taste to Buy, that would allow the customers to purchase 1, 3, or 5-ounce samples of wine by these self-serving machines. It's really kind of interesting. It's these boxes, and it's all sanitary and very, very, very technical. And what you do is you come in with a prepaid card into the vending machine, and you choose the wine that you're interested in. You put in your card, and it spills out a 1 ounce, 3 ounce, or 5 ounce. And if you like it, then you can buy the bottle. So these machines are very popular out west, but they're new to the Midwest. I don't know if there's any in the Chicago area, but Mr. Dorner has researched this, and he thinks this would be a nice place to begin this this new concept. He and his businesses are seeking the Class O license. Again, this is a request for a new liquor license for a new business. He's also asking for craft beer and spirits. He came before us in October, but has amended it because he wants the craft beer and spirits to be sold by the bottle or by the can, in addition to this this prepaid these wine samples. We discussed this matter. We were excited about it. It's got to go in front of the police department for a license check, but assuming that Mr. Dorner and his partner gets beyond the license or the background check, we're excited to have another new business downtown Western Springs, and so we're encouraging him to keep the hours and have it be part of that whole side of with those other 3 restaurants there. We thought it'd be a nice addition.
Mm-hmm.
So other than that, another item concerns an upgrade in our ESRI product license. ESRI is an acronym for Geographic Informational System Software Company, GIS. We saw plenty of that in the capital infrastructure program that we had earlier. These GIS is a primary data source to manage and update and forecast capital infrastructure planning for all the village assets. We saw examples of that with the water and the sewers and the tree program. What we have now, we have licensing for these GIS products from ESRI, which is apparently this ESRI company has all the GIS for municipalities in the nation. They kind of have a market share for municipalities. We have licenses right now. They're about $10,000 a year for 15 licenses for 15 licenses. What staff is requesting is an expansion into what's called Small Local Government Cloud-Based Enterprise Agreement. So instead of 15 licenses, now we'll have an enterprise agreement with staff, and we'll have 50 different users for these GIS, and it'll be an expansion and extremely helpful, as we even saw tonight, how useful that is for even lay people to understand it. If there's no further questions on those, on that, our last item that we had was the village staff is hoping to reclassify our building inspector plan reviewer position to the title of building official. Community Development Department has posted a job for advertisement for building inspector / plan reviewer after the resignation of our previous inspector and plan reviewer. This position would require building plan reviews, building inspections, project oversight, and code enforcement. Unfortunately, there's been a shortage of building professionals in the industry in our area. Many of our neighboring communities have needed building inspector and plan reviewers, but have been unable to fill the positions. And now with our recent resignation of our employee, we feel that this will present difficulty, especially with the spring season building approaching. The proposal from staff, which makes a lot of sense, is to reclassify this position to building official at a higher pay grade of 6. Is that right? Am I getting it?
Grade 6.
Pay grade 6, to attract, hopefully, a suitable candidate who can perform the necessary duties of both building inspection and reviewing plans. There's no additional funding being requested. They're hoping that the existing budget line item can fund the upgrade. Is there anything else on that?
You covered it. Thank
Okay. We thought very favorably of that, along with the other things. And that's all I would have if there are no questions.
Any questions of Trustee
Is
Terrell?
there a cost with the upgrade of the GIS?
Yes, did I say that? It's,
did
there
you
is
say
a
at the
cost
beginning?
increase. It's, it will be $15,500. So the way it's explained to me, we're going from $10,000 for 15
okay.
licenses. Now we'll have, for $15,000, we'll have this enterprise with 50 licenses.
Oh, great, okay.
And that'll eventually pay for itself, because it's, you saw tonight how prolific it's going to be with all of our data.
Okay,
So thanks for
you.
pointing that out. I must have forgotten to
You may
mention.
have said it.
And with the other agreement too, you're capped at the 15, and so if you added people, it was like an additional $1,000 cost per person. So
That makes
we would
sense.
quickly meet that, I think, going forward.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Terrell. Any other questions for Trustee Terrell? No? Okay. We'll move on to the reports then. On March 7th, Communications Manager Selman Chichek and I had the distinct pleasure to meet with a group of McClure Junior High students. They were an elective civics class, and their teacher, Ms. Rees, and the assistant principal, Mr. Sturm, brought the group over, and we were confined to their period, which was very tight, but they were engaged, and just so wonderful to actually talk. That has definitely been the highlight of my years so far.
Aw.
So it was a wonderful opportunity to meet some of our younger residents, and just wanted to report out on that, and that's all I have. So Manager Baird, do you have a report?
No report tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Drusik?
No report tonight.
Okay. Does any trustee have any other business they wish to discuss this evening? One last opportunity for our young Boy Scout, if he has any questions, now that he's heard all of our information from today. Okay, thank you. Then may I have a motion to recess to close meeting?
Yes, that'd be my motion to recess to close meeting for the purpose of discussion of collective negotiating matters between the village and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees pursuant to 5 Illinois Compiled Statute 120/2C2.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk Timick, may we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Trustee Keller. Trustee Chen.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee John.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis. Aye. Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in closed session. this is a meeting of the executive board here to discuss these matters. When we come back to the open meeting, we will not act or discuss any other matter except to adjourn. So thank you for your attendance tonight. Good evening. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Okay. Thank you.
Is Phil,